Hello. Well, this week's movie was the original Star Wars, or as it's known now, Episode 4. And just in case anybody's watching, they still haven't seen the other Star Wars movie. I guess a little spoiler alert, because you can't really talk about one Star Wars movie without talking about the rest of them. They're all very interwoven together. But I guess to start off, we can talk about the hero, the traditions of the hero, and with our hero in this case being Luke Skywalker. A little different aspects of a hero that we've been studying, and you can see in the movies. Uh, an aspect is the mother of a royal virgin. Well, his mother was not really a virgin, but she was royal in a sense because she was a senator in the old republic of Padme. His father, the father being a king, the the father of Luke Skywalker is, if you didn't know, Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader. And in both sense, as Anakin and Darth Vader, he could be considered a king. As Anakin Skywalker, he was the chosen one of the Jedi. He prophesied to bring um, balance to the Force. And as Darth Vader, he's the right hand of the Emperor, his apprentice, and pretty much the number two in the Empire. Um, Luke did have an unusual conception in the sense that Padme was dying and she was giving birth to both Luke and Leia. Another surprise. So, well, as she was giving birth to twins, she was dying, and it was all done in secrecy. And because of this, they were later taken away, which we'll discuss in a bit. But and it's also reputed that Luke's the son of a god. Once again, Obi-Wan tells him his father was a great Jedi, one of the best in the Order. Doesn't really tell him the whole story, which would have been helpful. Uh, and when he was born, there would have been an attempt at Luke's life if his existence was even known. The Emperor would have definitely gone after Luke. Anakin would have definitely gone after his children, and thus they were spirited away, and that's why they had a little secret birth. And Leia was taken to they were separated. Leia was taken to one planet, Luke was taken to another, and Luke was taken care of by his uncle Not, who met a tragic end right at the beginning of the film. And return to the future kingdom and manhood once Luke reached a certain age and everything started happening, he started returning to his kingdom, or his tradition, his religion in Star Wars, of the Force, the Order of the Jedi. He was being brought back into that. Now, that's another part of the film that goes back into our studies. Jesse Weston has added the dimension of spirituality within the myth. Is just not for food. There's a spiritual sense. Well, in this movie universe, the spiritual sense is the Force. As Obi-Wan described it, it's what connects everything within the universe, and by tapping into it, you can do extraordinary things. So it had that little sense of spiritualism. But the important part of the movie and this whole module is like exploring the hero's journey. So we're going to analyze step by step the different parts of the hero's journey. Now, of course, there are other parts missing in the film corresponding to the hero's journey, simply because yes, it's a standalone film, but there's also some things that still need to be done in order to complete the hero's journey. Luke's journey was partially over at the end of the film, but he still has a long way to go in the next 2 weeks of films that we're going to be watching. So just to analyze some aspects of the hero's journey, we have the departure. Within the departure, we had the call to adventure when R2D2's little hologram popped up with Leia asking Obi-Wan to help. Of course, Luke was infatuated with the girl, not knowing it was his sister, and he went on to it. Later on, when Obi-Wan asked him to come with him, he initially refused the call, saying his uncle and aunt needed him. He couldn't leave. Of course, that wasn't a problem once he found out they were all dead. And he had a supernatural help in the form of Obi-Wan, one of the last Jedi's to help him and assist him and train him. And so that was that. And they crossed their first threshold when they were able to leave the planet. There was this whole little escape, had to avoid the stormtroopers, avoiding the Empire, avoiding all the bandits, getting to Han Solo and leaving the planet. And then they went straight into the belly of the whale by being trapped by the Death Star's tractor being pulled in. And at this point, we reach the initiation of the movie where the Road of Trials. Well, they have to try and escape the Death Star. They're trying to escape along with the Empire, trying to chase them down and shoot them, and also trying to rescue the princess once they find out that she's there. So they meet the princess, which in this case would be the goddess slash female temptress, and they eventually acquire the ultimate boom, which they found out it was R2D2 had it, the plans at the Death Star, and they were able to do that. And now upon their return, they had to leave the Death Star, returning to the world. And initially, Luke was refusing a bit because, from his point of view, Darth Vader was striking Obi-Wan down. He wanted to go back, help his mentor, but of course they had to leave. They had their magical flight. They got away on the Millennium Falcon, and later on, after everything was said and done, they fought the Empire. Luke had the freedom to live. He had the choice, and now he could be a rebel, and that's the choice he took. There's a lot of aspects of the return that are missing in this film, simply because the last official return is gonna come in Episode 6. So the return is really the one that is very empty in this movie, because there's still aspects that needs to be addressed, but that will happen later in the films. So once again, Star Wars, one of my favorites. Very, very nice to watch it, and very nice to see it, and you really can't see how Lucas incorporated the hero's myth into his film.